Frank and Angie are here in Ecuador at the beach today, and we're talking about small town living when you move abroad. Now, is that really an option? Well, we've done videos comparing small town living to big cities, and of course there are small towns that foreigners come into and cause bubbles, and they very quickly become pricey. But beyond that thought, there are other issues to consider. That's what this video is about. Now, when we first moved out to Ecuador 6 years ago, one of the things that it's like this, guys. It's like if you're not experiencing something at the moment, it's likely that you're not thinking about it. That's why we like to make these videos. A lot of times, you know, when you watch all these other videos, they don't, you know, there's certain things that they kind of sweep under the rug, and there are other things that they want you to hear. So that's not how this video is. The thing is, you got to go back like 3 or 4 decades. If you can recall going back 3 or 4 decades, I know because my in-laws used to live in a small town way up and out in the country, and they were in a small town, and whenever we went to visit them, because we were in Portland, Oregon, a big city, whenever we went to visit them, you always felt so isolated. I mean, because there wasn't anything out there. Nowadays, you go out to a small town, you know, and you could be even in a really small town, and you're just but maybe 10-15 minutes away from all the major big box, well, maybe not all of them, but quite a few big box stores, plus a lot of other businesses. Once they move in, it seems like other businesses like restaurants and things move in. So there's a whole lot of availability of things. Now, I know we've talked about this in another video, but I think that when you think about moving to a smaller town, I think it's important to emphasize it, because there has been some popular bloggers in the past that even tried that, you know, moving to out in the country in a small town. I'll tell you, it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. You know, the thing is that what we come from is what we need to understand. And for example, we've talked about how people have been in their working years, right? And when you're in your employment years, typically we live close to our employer, or not too far anyway, even if there's a little bit of a commute. We're usually in a big city where the employer is. It's usually you're not way out in nowhere, okay? Typically. And so that means you're used to having everything convenience. This is why I believe Americans are so habitually used to having everything at their fingertips and everything convenient, because of I think that the core grounding issue is the employment. And of course the employment causes you to live where there's populations, because that's where, you know, everything's happening. The buying, the selling, and everything, and the living and the working. How does the coast turn you into a bobblehead? Because you have to constantly do this to all the touts. Coming from that background, that's what I'm saying. You're coming from this background of everything being, because of your employment, everything being right there. You know, unless you've lived out in the country already, you know, moving to a small town when you move abroad, it's going to be a huge culture shock. You know, I mean, there's a certain amount of unwinding that happens at first, but eventually challenges like trying to get workmen to come all the way out there. I mean, if you're not a self-sufficient kind of person that kind of does things themselves, I mean, here in Salinas, I'm not. I mean, I'm in a population here, okay, even though I'm not beachfront, and I'm in the middle of a neighborhood, and the houses are really close together, as you've seen in some of the videos. So you know, you're not really, you have people, in other words, you have a population, and if you need a plumber, you can get one. If you need a whatever. But I don't know if I mentioned this before, I've had to do my own plumbing on several occasions, just because I didn't want to go through the rigmarole of everything that entails. I won't go into that right now. So if you're not, I'm just saying, if you're not that type of person, if you're uncomfortable or have never done it before, you've never been self-sufficient, being way out, and when I say way out, it's really easy to feel like you're way out pretty quick when everything's not close by. And there's other challenges. I mean, sometimes they put a store out there, but remember, when there's other foreigners, we've talked about this before too, when there's other foreigners moving in and everybody's not watching their pennies and everybody shops at the same store, that store quickly becomes no longer a reasonable prices. The prices, I've showed you that a lot of the stuff is pretty similar to the US, sometimes even more than the US. So anyway, not trying to be a dream crusher here, just explaining what the challenges are. Going back to how things were in the 1950s may or may not be the bed of roses that you had dreamed it to be. So a lot of people try it and they just can't cut it. And then there's a language. Definitely language is even more important out when you go out of the city and go out in the country here. So, and there's other issues still, which we'll have to cover in a different video. So there's a lot of challenges. They're not insurmountable. Some people can do it, you know. Some people like being self-sufficient. They like peace and quiet. There are other challenges. We'll talk about that at some other time. But as usual, if you're one of these people that are kind of self-sufficient, do it yourself, and can handle the isolation, it might work for you. But remember what I've said about small areas. Once a fair number of foreigners start doing it, the prices just become untouchable. Now, personally, I'm not super uncomfortable being somewhat isolated. I've done things like, when being away from things, even back in the States, I've done things like make my own sour cream, you know. So I'm not, it's not a foreign concept to me. I'm comfortable with things like that. Everybody likes convenience, but if I don't have it, I tend to figure out solutions. So it's all a matter of pros and cons, isn't it? And figuring out what's going to make you happy. Some people could be happy with that and some people wouldn't, you know. Some people have to have their sour cream from the store because, let's face it, it tastes different. Hey, the homemade sour cream wasn't bad. It's better for you. Oh wait, is that a jellyfish? Wait, it looks like an octopus. But you don't normally see them swimming over the top. No, it's a dead fish. It's not an octopus.